IVM.
I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I am your peak performance coach and leadership coach, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, in your relationships, professions, and most importantly, your life. So let's thrive, grow, and evolve together, one episode at a time. You know that moment where you're standing in the middle of a crowd or celebrating a party or your success with friends and family, and yet, in the middle of all that company, you stand there feeling lonely? Ever felt that? You could be having a romantic dinner with your partner and yet feel lonely. You could be at a club dancing with friends and yet feel lonely. You could be on a holiday with family and yet, wherever you go, this loneliness follows you. Just imagine for a moment, if I had to take your phone, your laptop, and your internet connection away from you just for 24 hours. How would that make you feel? All of us tend to experience a feeling of loneliness in one way or the other. It's a normal reaction when you feel disconnected from others physically or emotionally, or maybe both. Loneliness shouldn't be tabooed because we human beings are social animals, and sometimes we tend to find solace in company, in people. We feed off people's energies, whether good or bad. However, with growing use of technology and people keeping to themselves constantly on their phones or laptops or browsing or scrolling, loneliness has become more common than ever. Loneliness is that deep, empty well that fills up with people, and these days, gadgets. Although it's absolutely normal, it's not an easy feeling to live with. Sometimes loneliness can be a trigger for other mental health issues as well. The good news is that feeling of loneliness doesn't have to be a permanent one, and you can completely learn how to overcome this feeling. So let's try a few techniques, shall we? Identify the reason for your loneliness. This is a very important step, as loneliness is often equated to depression, and that is not always factual. It is possible to feel lonely and not be depressed, and it is also very likely to be depressed but not feel lonely. So don't jump to conclusions easily, because this is where you are going to be able to understand whether your loneliness is in passing or it is deeper than that. Find an activity and join a crowd. I know when I say join a crowd, you would find that odd and think, okay, Zarina, why would you tell us to just be part of a herd? But research has shown that more than one-on-one conversations, group discussions really help overcoming the feeling of loneliness. Any activities like dancing, swimming, playing any sport, indulging in activities with people or groups, they really help to replace and eliminate that loneliness. And hence, you need to find yourself an activity and join a crowd. Be mindful of your loneliness. The feeling itself is a mindset, because no matter where you are and what you do, you can still be lonely. How is that possible? It is. A large part of loneliness is just a state of mind. So what you need to do is use your mind. Be mindful. And here is where you'll ask me how. Well, be mindful about what makes you lonely. If you are feeling it and acknowledge it, then be mindful in the moment of understanding this feeling and let yourself know it's going to pass. Allow it to pass. Remind yourself that you are not your loneliness and it doesn't define you. Clear your mind in that very moment and use all your senses to clear your mind. That's what being mindful is. Be mindful about what you feed your mind, because whether they are good thoughts or bad thoughts, you will land up having an emotional reaction to it. Because whether they are good or bad thoughts, whatever you feed your mind is who you become. So be mindful, retract, regroup, and respond. This one is extremely important. You are not on your own. The one feeling that is experienced individually but shared universally is loneliness. What an irony it is, isn't it? It is a shared experience. You're not the only one feeling lonely. Probably more than half the world is feeling the same as you and in different situations. Not that this changes anything, but it can be pacifying to know you are not by yourself. A little similar to when the teacher gives the entire grade bad marks and you go home and you tell your parents, it's not just me, it's my whole class that was marked badly. It doesn't change anything, but it does give you solace. So remember, you are not on your own. Loneliness is something everyone in one way or the other is sharing with you and experiencing with you as you go on about your life. Okay, another really nice way of handling this is adopt a pet, plant, or project. That's how I like to call it. If you are a responsible individual, and the key word here is responsible, then you can adopt a pet to overcome that feeling of loneliness. Pets are great company. Or you may want to nurture houseplants. That too is very therapeutic. Or you may want to volunteer on some project or cause that can make you feel useful and also add some purpose to your life. So if you really think you can do something good out there for the society in your own way, then adopt a pet, a plant, or a project. Lastly, reach out to a professional to discuss your feelings if these feelings of loneliness are prolonged. It goes without saying that if you are dealing with loneliness and it is part of your general depression or anxiety or any other mental issue, then you must seek treatment, you must seek help from a licensed or certified practitioner or professional. Sometimes the feeling itself is enough to seek help from a professional. It may not have to be a mental condition. Communicating and talking it through can really improve your quality of life and, in fact, give you a sense of ease and allow you to move on with your life. Be happy and feel peaceful. So if nothing works, reach out to a professional and do not be embarrassed about it. Finally, most importantly, remember, being alone and feeling lonely aren't the same feelings. You can be comfortable in your own skin. You can be alone and happy in your own company, despite what people think. And you could be surrounded by the noise, the fun, the madness, and still feel very, very lonely. So, a good question to ask yourself is, are you alone or are you feeling lonely? And don't forget, we're all in this together. Be safe, be well, be empowered.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank the sponsors on our network this week, Seat Tires. So we had a fantastic week. Tune into This Round is on Me, where Gauri Devidayal has a chat with Divya Ravichandran on the issues of waste management in India and how recycling, composting, and using eco-friendly alternatives can help. On Filter Coffee Podcast, Karthik speaks with Lux Narayan about his book Name, Place, Animal, Thing, an inspiring non-fiction fable about hope, positivity, and living your best life. On All Things Policy, Anirudh Kaniseti talks to Prateek Wakre and Rohan Sheth about Australia's conflict with Facebook and Google and what this means for big tech companies and the news ecosystem. On the Simplified podcast, Naren and Tony talk about greenwashing, which is businesses unfairly marketing themselves as eco-friendly just to ride the sustainability wave. You should also check out the Cyrus Says episode with Varun Deshpande of the Good Food Institute, where they talk about plant-based alternatives. Varun does a great show with us called Feeding 10 Billion. Do check out this episode of Cyrus Says. They have a really interesting conversation. On the Millennial Athlete, Tanvi and Shlok speak to the badminton doubles player Satvik Sairaj about his successful stints at some of the recently concluded games. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
What are some of the radical changes that are now shaping our workspace? With physical distancing and heightened safety protocols being the norm, will technology finally make its large-scale entry to the workspace? Will design as we know it change for the long term? Is it possible for the Indian commercial real estate space to adopt a 360-degree approach to sustainability? Join our hosts at the Future of Space podcast by RMZ as we deliberate with industry leaders, analysts, and bright young minds on the way forward for the workspace given the new COVID normal. Tune in to the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts